What if you could have a glorious looking pre-war race car for a fraction of the cost of a pre-war race car? Not only that, more reliable than a pre-war race car. Not only that, but possibly street legal. You could drive it to the shops, you could drive it any way you wanted. Not only that, you could build it yourself using parts from a broken Mazda MX-5. Well, that's exactly what this thing is. This is the start of a dream. This is the Tipo 184, based around a pre-war race car, but using all the guts from an MOT failure Mazda MX-5. And today we're going to take one out on the road and we're going to talk about the story of how this thing came to be. I'm Jonny Smith. This is The Late Break Show. So in effect, it's like a grown-up Airfix or Tamiya kit. That's the way you need to look at this car. And it's his fault that the Tipo 184 exists.
Hi, Jonny.
Hey, Darren, you all right? So let me get this right. It's a combination of your fault and some guy called Ant Anstead off the TV that this exists. This is the earliest one, isn't it?
It is. This is the prototype car, and it all started quite a few years ago now with a charity challenge to build a car that was between Mike and Ant. And
so a Wheeler Dealers charity-based auction. I remember I was there when it got unveiled at the NEC, I think.
That's right, that's right. And then from that car, we built a second car, which was the Master Mechanic TV show.
Yeah.
Which was a one-off special car for the show. And then we just started thinking, why don't we do this, make this viable? And this is how the Tipo 184 began.
So the first version did have an MX-5 engine.
Correct.
And then the second version that Ant did on the TV with the Master Mechanic, that had Alfa Romeo guts from memory.
Mm-hmm. That had an Alfa Spider engine, yeah.
Right, okay. And now we're in the sort of productionized version of that, which you can either buy as a turnkey car or as a kit and build it at home on your own or with your friends / family.
Yeah, that's right. So,
which I love the concept of. I think it's brilliant.
Well, that's the whole purpose behind the project, really, is to engage people with these things on the end of their arms. So, you know, parents and kids, students, colleges, or just anybody that's dreamt of building their own car that just doesn't have the confidence. We've made the car really easy to assemble with just the basic tools, so you don't have to be an engineer, you don't need a massive workshop like we've got here. You can just build it at home with your Halford socket set. And
I have a Halford socket set.
I think most people start with a Halford
it's a good one. It's Halford's professional. So let's start with this one, because this is probably the best way to illustrate the skeleton of the Tipo 184. I should have probably mentioned at the top of this video, this car emulates the Fangio race car, the Alfa Romeo of 1950, is it?
Most famous for 1950 Grand Prix, but it was a pre-war design.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Alfa 158.
So the Alfa 158 kind of face, that is a composite body, as you said. It goes over this, so this is a tubular chassis, and you need to correct me on all of this information, Darren. I'm going to pop round here and have a quick look so you can swoop in. So the beautiful concept of the Tipo 184 is you take an MOT failure Mazda MX-5 second generation car.
Yes.
The one that less people like. The one that isn't classed as a classic yet.
The one that rusts the most.
The one that rusts the most.
Wheel arches, sills, front outriggers. They're no good normally on the MOT failure, but all the good bits, which is the engineering mechanicals, that's the stuff that we take.
So you take the motor, the gearbox, the front subframe, with the suspension, wishbones, brakes, steering, rear suspension, subframe,
Yep.
diff,
Yep.
and make it look vintage.
Exactly. We package it. We repackage the whole drivetrain effectively. Even the wiring looms reused, the
Wow.
pedal assemblies, steering column, even the handbrake and the handbrake cables.
Wow,
So the idea behind that is that it's a one-stop shop, because you've already got your donor, you've bought your MX-5 MOT failure,
Yeah.
or it might be a car that's been in your family for quite some time and it's just not viable to get it through the next MOT, so it can live on as a Tipo. And it keeps the cost down because you only got that one single source donor.
I love the concept of this. I remember you talking about it a long time ago to me, and it really appealed to me on two accounts. One, owning a pre-war car is not a cheap exercise, and it's certainly not a car you're likely to use frequently. Most young people, it's completely out of reach, a bit like young people trying to buy a house. Secondly, and this is controversial, there is no Mazda MX-5 that I like the look of. I love the way they drive, I just don't like the way they look, and I don't often say this in public because I get shot down. So this really, really appeals to me because you get the durability, the proven durability of MX-5 drivetrain and suspension and feel, but with something that looks like that. Am I right in thinking you can either buy this as a kit, build it at home, or I could order it from you guys and say, I want one of these in black with, I don't know, chrome wires, with an orange seat. Can I have it in the next 6 months?
Yeah, exactly that. You can,
Okay.
you can build on a budget. You can buy the starter kit, which gives you everything you need to get a rolling chassis.
Yep.
Along with, obviously, you need to acquire your donor vehicle.
Yep.
And then everything else onwards, all the what I call the jewellery, like the aero screens, the lovely motor liter steering wheel, which we have specially made for the car. You can buy it as and when you're ready. So you don't have to buy everything at once. You can do if you have the space, but equally, we can build a car to your exacting requirement.
Tally ho! This is the Tipo 184. So, kind of like an MX-5, but not. Certainly sitting bolt upright and higher than an MX-5 in that stance of a vintage car. Oh, you dirty bastard. Auto gates nearly shut on me. Well, I can report the brakes work. Right. Oh, I need my goggles. There we go. So what's really appealing to me about this is, like I said before, you get the look. You get the look of a vintage car, of a race car, but the reality of more robust, cheaper underpinnings, which have got a massive aftermarket following. Now the MX-5, you can keep it all stock, or you can go crazy with the aftermarket if you so wish. And I love that about it. The other thing is this brings back the sort of the simplicity of kind of like pleasure motoring, in so much as this thing's 740 kilos, open wheeled, no doors, no roof, no worries, thin tyres. So although it's only 146, 148 horsepower, it's only 740 kilos, and that's a big deal because cars these days are not that light. The other thing is you don't have to worry about non-synchromesh gears or anything like that, because it's an MX-5 gearbox, which is one of the best elements of an MX-5 in my humble view. I absolutely love the MX-5 gearbox, which is why brakes are lovely and keen, which really helps when you're going down back lanes with concerned looking ladies in minis. Anyway, onward! Transit van. Really nice and responsive. That gear shift with that crazy sort of swan neck linkage. It's crackers, but it's fantastic. Now you're probably going, hey Johnny, it's got no headlights or anything, so it must be illegal. No, not true. You can order your Tipo 184 as a road legal kit or not. And this particular one doesn't have headlights and doesn't have indicators, but it has a daytime MOT, which means I can still use hand signals, which are still legal tender these days, believe it or not. So I'm going to use hand signals. There's a brake light at the back, which is good because when you take it on a circuit, you've got your basic brake light there. And I'm only going to drive it in the day, so you can buy it with headlights if you so wish. In terms of proportions, it's very different to an MX-5 because I'm sat with my arse essentially on the diff. Wheels are completely exposed, you can see. I mean, I am on the rear axle line. And long bonnet, longer wheelbase, I think, than an MX-5. It's actually a bigger car than I was expecting it to be. Bigger, but not heavier. No power steering on the Tipo, largely because, like Darren says, you simply don't need it. With these thinner tyres, these block cleats, so classic looking tread, modern compound construction. Thin though, in other words, the car moves around a bit like an old vintage car, and then suddenly that 150 horsepower becomes really playful because of the curb weight and the thinness of the rims and tyres. It's easy to place on the road because it's an open-wheeled car. I mean, basically, I'm a faux Toad from Toad Hall, aren't I, really? And because it's an MX-5, it stops really well. And the brakes are cheap, and the suspension's cheap, and the gearbox won't break. And if I wanted to, I could probably remap the ECU and give it a tickle. Or if I wanted to, and I was an absolute flute, I could put a turbo kit or a supercharger kit on it. Actually, a supercharger kit would be flipping amazing on this. Now that's got me a little bit aroused just thinking about that. Of course, you could buy one of these and just use it on track or, you know, on private property. And you don't have to dress up as a idiotic faux Toad of Toad Hall. I'm just doing this so you don't have to. I'm also doing it to shield the microphone from buffeting noise. That noise you can hear, the tinkling noise, is actually these what they call bat wings, which were to stop. They were on the Fangio race car a few seasons in to stop dirt and rain showering Fangio's face when the wheels are on lock. Oh, another thing, while I'm going through this leafy village, I'm going to have myself a Fangio flat white. Because Darren did design it with a cheeky non-period cup holder, which doesn't look like a cup holder until he pointed it out to me. So, Mr. Anstead, that's for you when you're in California, enjoying your mocha choca skinny frappuccino thing. But I bet so many people who are seeing me drive past in this leafy British village are presuming that this is a vintage car. Of course, it isn't. I think I'm enjoying this a little bit more than I was expecting. And I was expecting to enjoy it. Really good turning. The steering feels wonderful. I mean, it's not hard at standstill when you're maneuvering, but it's especially pleasant, you know, as soon as you get above 15, 20 mile an hour. This little fly screen just gets the wind off your face. I'm getting real nice, believe it or not, pretty good warmth off the gearbox and those louvers from the engine bay. Nobody knows that there's that little 1.8 underneath there, that little MX-5 twin cam. Apparently you can't fit the 1600, different size of block, so it's this one. The 1800 only. I'm going to sit in because what I love about these, you can see exactly how you've done the steering joints, you can see this incredible, it's almost the sort of party piece of the car, is the gear linkage. So, gearbox is here, between my legs, right, the Mazda gearbox. That's where the lever would normally go into the Mazda, but it would normally be between the seats. What you've done, Darren, is nothing short of genius. Look at this. So it goes over the top of my right leg. Obviously the pedal box is split between the actual gearbox itself. What a great idea.
Yeah, well, the Mazda actually lended itself to splitting the pedals because the two units are two separate parts in the Mazda.
Oh, okay.
It was absolutely perfect for the application.
The MX-5 is one of those cars where I get the impression the more you looked into it, the better it became as a donor.
You know, you work on a lot of cars today and you go, who the heck designed this? How do they expect me to get my hands in there to that nut and bolt or whatever?
Yeah.
But, you know, the MX-5 really, really was well engineered.
Yeah. Even this, look, you've put a catalytic converter in this old school exhaust.
Yeah, unfortunately, we want to make these road legal, so we have to pass the emissions test. So we have to put a catalytic converter, but that's kind of disguised underneath a heat shield anyway.
Yeah. No, it's great. And repurpose gauges. So again, you could go to town, you could put aftermarket period star gauges in, which cost money, or you just do what you've done and you kind of, again, you've sort of disguised the original clocks of the MX-5.
Yeah, it was about budget and making the car accessible. Because I would imagine some builders may want to go and get some real 1930s gauges, you know, and cut themselves a new dashboard and put them in there, which is great.
Yeah.
But you know, not everybody's got a gazillion pounds that they can go and do this. So
that's someone messaging you with a gazillion pounds.
They want to order a
20. They're going to order
a gazillion pound Tipo now.
Yeah. A gridful. 20 for the first race. How long has it actually taken you to conceive it properly from the last, what you'd call a prototype, to the first the productionized version of this?
To actually build that car, in reality, probably took me just under 12 months to imagineer it from zero to having something that I could physically drive around the estate here. To productionize it, that is the hardest thing, because everything is designed, you know, up here and on a sketch, and sometimes it wasn't even a sketch. You just kind of go to the device and make it, you know, and you not have a drawing. So making something production viable is a completely different task.
I've seen all the crates in the background, so these are ones going out to customers.
Yeah, I mean, depending on whereabouts in the world you reside, the value of a used MX-5 can be crazy. I mean, out in Australia, it's sort of £10,000 for a Mark II MX-5.
Is it really?
So a lot of customers, what they're saying is, can you source as an MX-5? Can you strip the parts from the donor and then ship them out as well? And it's, as crazy as it may seem, it's economically viable.
I love it because out of shot there's just loads of bits of dead MX-5s. There's engines here, front cross members and steering and suspension. And you were saying actually probably the most time consuming part of assembling one of these is the sort of cleaning up of the old components, deciding what, how kind of high standard of finish you want on the old Mazda bits before putting them into the new frame to build it up.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of the time is harvesting the parts from your car, because you're going to have rusty nuts and bolts that might fight you a little bit. Then cleaning the parts up, putting new bearings and bushes in, and, as you say, painting them. Some people may not do that. They might just want to just bolt them in and get on the road. Other people might be very, very specific about the detail. And
I like the fact that all the bits come in like idiot-proof packets. So all the nuts and bolts are in packets, just like a little model kit. And it just says these are the bolts for this, nothing else, just this. These are the brackets for this, nothing else, just this. I love that about it.
So everything we supply, allows you to build the car. You're not rummaging in the jam jars in the shed, tipping them all out, and I'm going to rummage on the bench to see if we've got a bolt. So everything comes all nice and new and shiny for you.
Brilliant. don't know where the hell I'm going, but I'm out for a joyride, so it doesn't matter. Because it's quite high, I can actually see over some of the hedgerows, so who needs an SUV? Because I'm not driving around in a new Ferrari with a popping, banging exhaust. People kind of have a bit more time for you. Little do they realise what lies beneath the bonnet is one of them. That's a broken MX-5. Bloody hell, I should probably put a note on that. Although, was that a Mark II? That might have been a Mark II. MX-5s are such popular track day cars, it begs the question, like, would you rather have one of these or a well-sorted MX-5 as a track vehicle? I know what I'd rather have. You see all those old photos of drivers like Fangio leaning, Graham Hill and old Moss, they're leaning as they drive around. Because you really feel like you can position the car a bit better. I got the exhaust just by my left ear. It's not too loud. And it's not annoying actually, it's just a pleasant exhaust note. But the throttle response is so good for this kind of weight of car. I'm now lost. I don't have 1930 sat nav. Shit. I've got to go through a Ford. Okay, Ford. Well, this is idyllic, isn't it? Well, that was nice. That was nice.
The first car was basically a static display car. It did move under its own steam, but it wasn't really a road-going car.
Yeah.
The second car proved the engineering concept and how to build a special car, and it was great content and it was a great TV show. Yeah. But it wasn't production ready. You couldn't go and harvest all the MGTDs to get your chassis. You couldn't go and harvest a Spider and make it viable as a product. So
because the donors were too expensive and too rare.
Exactly. Yeah. So we had to look at a single source donor, and we came up with the MX-5 because it ticked all the boxes with rear wheel drive, reliability, and value for money and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah. And then in starting the build, I wanted to engineer this car to be not only safe and easy to manufacture and practical, easy to assemble, but it needed to be done thoroughly. Yes. Because when you're building something for a charity and for a TV show, it's a different animal to something that you're putting your child in or you're giving it to another person to drive. So we had to build it to meet regulation. So
this has been crash tested. Or crash simulated?
It's been crash simulated, yeah. What I did is I designed the chassis behind us to have lots of impact absorption zones and in its design to make it inherently safe. Yeah. And then we took that and we digitally modelled it. In fact, one of the whole ethos of the project is to engage kids and parents and people on the project, and we're engaging students in a university. We're using the digital model to learn about torsional twisting in chassis and to learn about crash and impact strength and the resultant shapes and deformation of the chassis. So they were using this model. So not only were they learning, they were actually simulating crashes in all which way they could come up with, and giving us the data and sharing the data with us. And we were really, really pleased that it does exactly what it says on the tin.
You don't get to see an awful lot of Mazda, do you really? Which I guess is intentional.
Yeah, in fact what we did is when we had for the first charity car and the Master Mechanic show, the body that we had for that was relatively accurate to the 158. This body, there's not a single panel which is the same. We've actually flared the sides of the car. We've made the car wider to encompass those subframes.
Oh, the Mazda track.
To conceal them. So,
right.
you know, what you actually see, it does fool the eye. We've made the car longer. Unfortunately, to meet the regulations for the Blue Book to allow the car on track, we had to put the roll bar in, which is very controversial. But in doing so, I've raised the height of the tail and lengthened the tail to try and keep the car in proportion.
Proportions, yeah.
But also to try and disguise a little the fact that we had no choice. We had to put a roll bar in for safety.
You have been living and breathing this for quite a few years, I know.
Yeah, I mean, it has been all-consuming to a point, but I think now, you know, looking at the product and the feedback we've had from everybody that sees it, you know, it makes it all worthwhile. And the fact now that we've got kits out there, we've delivered to customers, we've got parents and kids building these together, and you know, we've got individuals that some are going to build them absolutely fantastically and want to, you know, go into the finest detail, and we've just got other people that want to build them and just get on the track and race. So it's fantastic, and I embrace that, and I want to see that creativity, and I want to see the diversity of how people take, you know, the basics that we've given them and create something that's unique.
My other question to you is this: if you don't care about an Alfa Romeo 158, is this a deal breaker for you, or is there other possibilities?
Well, currently, I cannot confirm or deny that that we are working on different body styles. So once you've got your Tipo, you've got your kit like that, you could put an alternative body on. There's only a few little nuts and bolts which hold the body in place onto the chassis, and as long as those alternative body styles pick up on the same places, it's just literally a unbolt and exchange, and you can have, you know, again, your imagination.
It'd be like a Tamiya RC car, wouldn't it? Couple of body clips, take that one off, put the other one on. What Darren is a clever guy. What he didn't say is how much he how many things he's built himself as a hobby over the years. He's built so many cars. See, this begs the question, do you look at a car like this and go, well, it's pretend, it's not real, so I'm not interested, it's not the real deal? But let me tell you this, there's a lot of cars that race at places like the Goodwood Revival that are not as they seem. They're probably recreations. So, where do you draw the line? Who's authentic and who's not? But like Darren said, and Darren's built a number of kit cars over the years. He's a qualified coach builder by trade. He's worked for Rolls-Royce. What's most important is the way it feels. And if it feels right, and if it gives you joy, then it's good, right? It's fun. And the fact that you can buy the basic kit of this Tipo for about 10,000 quid, I think that's pretty good. You can order a turnkey car for probably 45,000 quid, something like that. I personally would take great joy in building it myself. I've always fancied building something like a Caterham, but Caterhams don't look good, they drive brilliantly. I think this is it's a right old hoot. It's a right old hoot. 5-speed, full synchro mesh, very convenient. I'd probably put cheeky indicators on my one, so I don't have to do this. Well, there is something quite novel about doing this, I have to say. Bit of roundabout action, might go around again. Because people just think you're pre-war, pre-internet. There's an MX-5, that's a Mark II. It's coming up behind me. That's the car that's harvested its organs for this. Is it going to follow me around? I hope it is. Well, and what's exciting to me is there is talk of these becoming available from Dowsetts as an EV as well. So that's future-proofing its existence even more. If you've watched an episode that I did previously, about 2 years ago now, on EV converted MX-5 kits. I'll put a link for that above. Would it be right to call this the acceptable face of the kit car world? Because, you know, there's been some terrible kit cars over the years and I shudder sometimes thinking about some of them, but maybe that's slightly unfair. This is kind of more than that. This is an exercise in upcycling, but it's also being able to actually own and achieve something which is otherwise out of our reach. There's a lot of 30s and 40s cars out there which are telephone numbers in money, and you wouldn't even get that driving experience without something like this existing. I think it's been beautifully executed. It drives so well. I've had a smile on my face all day. It hides all of that Mazda, that upcycled Mazda within, and everybody who I've driven past thinks it's a pre-war tally-ho car. And kind of that's what it's about, isn't it? For me personally, I would want to build one. I would take great pleasure in building one of these. And when you consider the basic kit starts at 10, the full DIY kit's about 20 grand, I would really want to put that together over the course of 3 or 4 weekends. Anyway, big question is what do you think? Put in the comments below. Would you own one? Would you like to build one yourself? What else is there to compare it to? Not a lot. Only downside is you can't take any of your friends out in it. You have to either let them drive it or they'll never experience it in their lives. Hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Late Break Show. If you haven't already subscribed, why not subscribe? Maybe you want to join us via Patreon and subscribe that way. You'll get early access to videos such as this. Or you could support us by buying some merch. Why not? I dare you. Thanks for watching.